Hey everybody, thanks for stopping by. It's Cold Stare, and this is the Guardian Druid Mage Tower Guide. Right, we have a lot to cover, so let's get right into it. Completing the High Lord's Return challenge will earn you a special transmog set called the Stormheart Raiment. This is a recolor of the Mythic Druid set from the raid Tomb of Sargeras. And you'll also unlock this unique bear form called the Fell Werebear. And if you're really determined and you can complete all 7 of the different Mage Tower scenarios, you'll unlock this amazing mount called the Soaring Spell Tome, which is rewarded for completing the Tour of Towers achievement. If you're not familiar with how to get to the Mage Tower, you're going to head to the Legion version of Dalaran. From there, you're going to head down to Deliverance Point on the Broken Shore. Once there, you're going to look for an NPC named War Counselor Victoria, and once you're ready to begin the fight, go and speak with her and she'll port you into the encounter. Here's a quick look at the consumables. If you were watching this video after the War Within, just use whatever consumables are recommended for Guardian Druids at the time. Here's the talent build I used, and I thought it was really good. Again, if you're watching this after the War Within, just use a good cleave build. This spell right here, Lunar Beam, was really important, and we'll talk about that more in a little bit. So we have a couple NPCs joining us in this encounter, a demon hunter named Corvus, and she's going to be in stasis most of the fight, so we're not too worried about her, but we are worried about Prophet Velen here. We need to keep him alive or we'll have to start the encounter over. And we're going to do a pretty deep dive on all the mechanics, so let's begin with Phase 1. The first stage of this encounter has us facing Inquisitor Varus here, and a few other mobs we'll cover as we go. And you'll notice he has this pool underneath him, this Aura of Decay. The longer we stand in that, the more we're going to get a stacking debuff, and that's going to lower our maximum health. So I'm going to advise you to knock over maybe 4 or 5 stacks. You can negate that a little bit by coming in a build that favors the balance spells more. You'll want to interrupt this Drain Life spell with Skull Bash, but if you have too many stacks to be in the Aura of Decay, you can use those Holy Wards that Velen puts on the play space to interrupt. You'll see these 4 portals open up occasionally, and these Nether Horror mobs will come out. It's important that you make sure you have aggro on them, and once they're on you, you have to quickly interrupt this Nether Storm spell. This is one of the easiest ways to die in this encounter. Incapacitating Roar is the perfect spell for interrupting them. It's on a short cooldown, should always be available. And you want to try and pull them onto Inquisitor Varus and use the Lunar Beam and Thrash to bring them down. Another mob we need to be aware of is these Smoldering Infernals. They will use a knockback if they get too close to us. If they do get that knockback off, use Charge or the Goblin Glider to get back onto the platform. Tormenting Eyes will channel Inquisitive Stare, and if you have your back towards them for too long, it'll also knock you off the platform. So you'll want to make sure you occasionally toss a Moonfire on them. Phase 2 begins when the Inquisitor goes down, and we now have a new environmental mechanic to deal with. These purple beams are going to roll across the platform and push you around. They are annoying, but just try your best to run around them. And Cruel's going to continuously try and cast Annihilate, and we have to use a strong defensive or interrupt him with the Holy Wards. He's also going to cast Twisted Reflection, and we must Skull Bash that every time, or it will heal him. So now that we've covered all the mechanics, let's take a look at the actual encounter from start to end. So our goal in the first phase is to wear down the Inquisitor, survive, and not get knocked off of the platform. When we can, we push into the Inquisitor, we melee and attack. When we get high stacks from the Aura of Decay, we back off, and that's a good time to work on the Tormenting Eyes and the Infernals. I would suggest that you try and get in a rhythm where you're timing it so that your stacks are falling off right while these Nether Horrors are spawning. And that's because we want to pull them in right on top of the Inquisitor so that when we use our Lunar Beam, we're kind of getting the bang for our buck, right? They're not just bringing, the Lunar Beam isn't just damaging the ads, but it's also damaging, see that? Even while we leave and exit the area, it's still damaging the Inquisitor. So we are saving Drums, Pots, and Incarn for the second phase when Cruel comes down because that's a very tight DPS race. But this first phase is not really a DPS race. As long as you're following, like I said, when we pull back, work on the ads. When you push in, work on the Inquisitor. You're not really going to get overwhelmed by the ads. If you completely ignore them, they will just continue to spawn, overwhelm you, too many knockbacks, all that. But just continuously toss Moonfire on everything. You should be okay. So as far as keeping Prophet Velen alive, it's not too difficult provided you keep a close eye on these Nether Horrors. In my experience, the only way he really dies is from those. Very often when they spawn, all 4 of them will immediately come over to you, no problem. But sometimes half of them will run to you and half will go to Velen. You have to watch them. If you see them going over to Velen, growl, Moonfire, something to get their attention very quickly because that's the fastest way for Velen to go down. Now, if you do notice that Prophet Velen's health has dropped, That's also what those holy wards are for that he's putting on the ground there, those yellow orbs. Those heal him, not just him, but your whole teammate, and they stun all the enemies on the platform. Think of those as your sort of little mini reset button, but you do want to use them sparingly because they are an important part to controlling Cruel in the second phase. We will go over that more later on in the video, but we're using the holy wards to stagger the annihilates that Cruel's going to cast on us. So anyway, we're getting close to the end of the first phase here, and you can see we've done a good job controlling the ads because when you pull back, you moonfire, you work on something to keep in mind about those tormenting eyes, by the way. They're immune to physical damage. Only moonfire them. Don't go up and try and maul or thrash them. And this is the rotation we go in. Nether horrors come out, pull them onto the Inquisitor, lunar beam, back up. Keep that moonfire rolling on Inquisitor. You can see here, you don't need to come in here in a balance heavy build for these times where you're pulling out waiting for the debuff to fall off. His health has steadily gone down really well thanks to the lunar beam that we keep putting on him. So yeah, that's it. Now we're just waiting for Cruel to come down. Once Cruel comes down, he's going to begin casting Annihilate, and this is when it's going to turn into a huge DPS race. Soon as he lands, we're using pots, drums, and Incarn, and it's going to become very overwhelming at this part. Because we still have to deal with the ads, see? But we now have to focus on everything that Cruel is doing. There's those beams I was telling you about that push you around. Now we want to position ourselves real close to these holy wards. See that? See, he was getting ready to cast it, and we used it to stop him. We're going to do that as much as we can, okay? Every time he uses an Annihilate on you, you have to use a progressively stronger defensive because it's making you take 100% more damage for every stack. So the first Annihilate he uses, a couple stacks of Iron Fur rolling. The second Annihilate, you're going to want a couple stacks of Iron Fur plus Rage the Sleeper. And the third, you're going to want a couple stacks of Iron Fur and Survival Instincts. The fourth, you're dead. You're not. That's how many you can take, is 3 Annihilates. Anything after that, you're almost certainly going to get one shot. So that's why this is such a big DPS race. It's a race against you bringing down Cruel's health and him spamming the Annihilates on you. My biggest advice here is you just got to stay calm. There's a lot going on here. It's going to take you a few tries. Keep watching for those holy wards and you're going to get it, okay? Sometimes those rolling beams can really mess you up. I had a pull where they pushed me into all of the holy wards at once, totally messed up the interrupt strat. But yeah, here it is. Cruel goes down. And I really love this challenge. I don't know if that's an unpopular opinion, but every time I do this, I always have a lot of fun with it. I'm not a big tank player, so I don't do it that often, but anytime I revisit this for YouTube or whatever, I always have a really good time with it. If you don't think you can do this, I promise you, you can. Just get a little bit farther each time. If you wipe, ask yourself, what caused me to wipe? How do I fix that? Move on, you're gonna get it, I promise you. So here's a look at the gear and the DPS breakdown. I also want to take a moment just to encourage you guys that please don't try and chase gimmicky strats. You don't need them, okay? I was gemmed, geared, everything for balance, and I just switched over to Guardian for this and grabbed a weapon and a trinket out of Void storage, and I still got it. It took me about 15 pulls. I'm not humble bragging, I'm just trying to show you guys you don't have to chase overpowered trinkets, flavor of the month enchants, anything like that, okay? Time your defensives. When you get to Cruel, get in that pattern of interrupting the Annihilates with the Holy Wards, and I promise you, you're gonna get this. So stick with it, and you'll definitely get your Fel Werebear. So thank you so much for watching in the end, and I will see you in Azeroth.